Hey, Vlad here, devinside.com. Welcome to another video. In the previous video, we've seen how Git works under the hood, especially its branching model, which essentially boiled down to moving pointers around. Today, we will take a look at merges, learn how to resolve merge conflicts, and even seek help from some visual tools. We will also switch to ZSH and start using a couple of very useful Git aliases. And furthermore, since we're moving closer and closer to the hero portion of the playlist, we're going to learn a bunch of new tricks across all kinds of topics like config and git ignore. Let's get right to it. Alright, now in the previous video we learned about the so-called fast-forward merges. It's when Git realizes that the real merge already happened and the merge conflicts, if any, were already resolved. And so all it needs to do is to move the pointer forward. We also learned that when we merge pull requests or short PRs into the main branch, we choose not to fast-forward by convention. We don't want to forget the fact that these couple of commits came from somewhere else. Even though it's technically not necessary, we ask Git to create a so-called merge commit, a commit that has two parents instead of one. This way, when we ask for the commit log, Git is perfectly capable to reassemble the entire commit graph, and so we see visually that the changes came from the side. And today we're going to talk about those merges that leave us no choice but to create the merge commit. These are the merges that create conflicts that must be resolved. Now, before we get into it, I would like to remind you that this entire series is supposed to be very practical, and the merges that cause conflicts are essentially not existent in practice. We're going to see how this is accomplished in the upcoming videos when we talk about the concept called rebase. On the other hand, even though merges like this are rarely seen in practice, the rebase conflicts happen all the time. And even though we haven't talked about rebases yet, it's very important to understand that it's exactly the same kinds of conflicts and they're also resolved in exactly the same way. I know it sounds confusing because we haven't talked about rebases yet. Essentially, all you need to know about them is that they're another way to bring two merges together. And so they create essentially the same conflicts and they need to be resolved in the same way. So avoiding merges by doing rebases all the time does not allow you to avoid the actual conflicts that are caused by it. Now, even that said, conflicts in general can be a very, very scary topic. At least they were for me when I started out. I remember in my first job, in the first couple of months, I was very much afraid to accidentally throw out the changes that my colleagues made. And because of that, we will forget the fact that merges that cause merge conflicts are very rare in practice. We will instead construct a very, very straightforward example. And not only that, we will spend this entire video on reconstructing exactly the same conflict over and over again to take out all the fear. Have no fear, Vlad is here. Now, in the first couple of videos, I mentioned that there are thousands of tools out there that can assist you to work with Git. And since you're a local branching expert, we can use a tool that at least can show us where we are, which is the prompt of our shell. Now, even though it's possible to configure bash in such a way that it would show us whatever we want, we could write a simple function that would run git branch, and then we would parse the output, remove the star, and put the branch into the prompt. We will simply replace bash with ZSH, which comes with a bunch of pre-built themes that can show us the branch. I have a couple of videos about ZSH. You might want to check them out. Now, before we go ahead and install ZSH, I actually want to show you a variable called pager. So if we do echo pager, we're going to see that it's not set. And the thing is that as soon as we install ZSH, it will actually export this variable, and Git will grab it, and it will run all the commands through our pager, which is less by default. Okay, through this program. Okay, so every time we do something like git branch, this command will run through the pager. Git log, like literally every command, like a git log actually always run through the pager. Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to show it to you before we install ZSH. Now, luckily there is a way to configure, basically to remove this variable, but just for Git, right? So we don't need to unset the variable. Okay, we can leave it set, but Git has a configuration where we can remove it. As already mentioned in the previous video, I sort of gave up on package managers, so we're going to go install.devinside.com/zsh, and I have a couple of install scripts related to ZSH. First one installs ZSH itself, then a couple of plugins. We're only going to use the syntax highlighting plugin today. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to copy these two lines, and we're going to click on install ZSH as well. I'm going to see that it basically does sudo apt install ZSH, and it also installs all my ZSH, which is a very popular, well, I guess it's a plugin manager for ZSH. All right, so I'm just going to paste this. I'm going to enter my password. while it installs, I'm going to also grab this guy. So just like these two lines, and we're also going to look at the install script, and we're going to see that it's actually kind of funny. It actually installs, it actually uses Git behind the scenes to essentially download, clone a repository behind the scenes and put it into a very specific directory. All right. So we're going to go over here. Do you want to change the default shell? Yes, please. All right. Password. There we go. All right, so as you can see, it already displays a prompt that already understands that we're in a Git repository and that we're on the main branch, because remember, we're in the repo second, but the entire prompt changed entirely, okay? So let's actually go out real quick, and again, like this, so I'm just going to run the machine again so that we can see that ZSH is now the default shell. Okay, so I'm also going to paste these two lines that are going to install the ZSH syntax highlighting plugin. I'm going to press enter. As you can see behind the scenes, it uses Git to actually do it. I'm also going to open the ZSHRC now. ZSHRC like this, and I'm going to go and I'm going to search for Git. Oh, actually, I'm also going to change the theme to in the loop, which is going to look very, very similar to the native Bash theme. All right, so I'm going to search for a Git, and here's what we find. So all my ZSH comes by default with a bunch of plugins, and Git is the only one that is enabled by default. Okay, so we're also going to go over here, and we're going to enable the um, ZSH syntax highlighting. Okay, so just these two. Okay, so the Git plugin itself for ZSH, it comes in with three things. The first one is functions, right? So it just brings in a bunch of like bash or ZSH functions. We're not going to focus on them today. The second thing that it brings is auto completion, and the third one is the aliases. Okay, so let me do this, and let me just go out just in case, and let me go back in. And as you can see, now the shell looks very, very similar to the bash shell. In fact, if I run bash, we're going to see that the prompt looks very, very similar, which is why I like it. Okay, let's go back to ZSH. All right, so what we're going to do is, well, first of all, let's actually go back to dev repo second. By the way, this is the syntax highlighting plugin. It understands that there's a command called cd, which is why it marks it as green. So if we start typing something like git, gi, gi is red. G is actually green because there is an alias for git called g. We're going to go through them in just a second. Okay, so essentially, as soon as it's green, we know, okay, this command actually exists. Okay, so by the way, look at the prompt. It also shows us that we actually have some changes to push. Okay, so if we do git status, it's going to tell us that we're ahead of origin master by one commit. This is why we see this arrow. There are also other things, that we will see in the video. We're going to see that, we have some changes laying around, or, we actually have to pull something and so on. Well, actually, this one we're not going to see, but it will be possible. Okay, so yeah, so the first thing that we have from this plugin is the auto completion. Okay, so for example, if we type in git co and then I press tab, we're going to see, okay, we can commit graph, like a bunch of commands that I haven't even shown you, right? Git has like thousands of commands, and I'm not going to show you all of them. Okay, so we can also go and choose commit, for example, and then I can also do -m, for example, another tab, and we're going to see, okay, I can specify the message, reuse message, blah blah blah. Okay, so a bunch of auto completion. Okay, cool. Now let me show you a couple of aliases, and we're going to use aliases heavily today. I'm always going to announce what the alias does, because I know that you're not used to them yet, but still, we're going to use aliases all the time. So the first one is, and this is how you can display the aliases that are already there. Okay, so the first one is G, right? So it's simply Git. Okay, the next one is going to be GST, which is Git status. The next one is going to be GSH, which is Git show. The next one is going to be GAA, which is going to be Git add all. Now we haven't talked about all yet. All is the same as, all right, so there's all, right, like this. It's the same as a, and it is also the same as dot, and it's also the same as star. Now in older versions of Git, in Git 1.x, there was a tiny difference between these four, but now there isn't. Okay, so Git add all is the same as Git add dot, and so on. Okay, so GAA, we're going to use it all the time today. All right, let me actually type out the ones that I typed in before, because I have a habit of clearing the screen, and I actually didn't want to clear the screen. Okay, so alias GAA. Okay, so this is where we go. Okay, the next one is going to be alias git commit message, GCMSG, right? Most of these aliases, they're just like the first letters of the commands. Okay, so this is git commit was a message. The next one is going to be git branch, which is GB. The next one is going to be git checkout, and right, so this is like create a branch and switch to the branch. The next one is going to be GSW, which is git switch, right? So change to another branch, but not, but don't do like a checkout right? So git switch is built in such a way that, if you do git checkout, then you can go to any random commit or any branch, but if you do git switch, you actually have to give it a branch. Okay. The next one is going to be GCM, which is going to be git checkout, and this is also the first time that we're seeing one of these new functions that the git plugin also brings. Okay, so I believe we can just do git main branch, right? And it's going to show us that we are on the main branch, right? So this is just a function that the Git plugin brings, and GCM is going to do git checkout the main branch, right? So it understands that if you have master, it's going to give you master. If you have main, it's going to give you main. The next one is going to be GLOG, right? So which is git log, okay? And this is the git log that we have been running all the time pretty much in the previous videos. It just uses also this decorate flag, and you actually don't need the decorate flag, okay? So if I do glog, it's going to look like this. As you can see, it runs through the page, and notice that like these are the decorations, right? So decoration is the to show you the pointers, okay? But if we actually run this command, basically the same thing, but without the decorate, it's still going to show exactly the same way, one line. Okay, so we still see the decoration. It's just that in the older versions of Git, the default was not, what was the other way around. Okay, so this is the git log, and there's also git log a. Okay, let's me do git log again and git log a, and a just adds the all flag. Remember, so it will show you all the branches, right? So it will take all the heads and draw the graph backwards from all of these, right? So it doesn't only draw the ones that are reachable from the commit that we're at. Now, there are many, many more aliases in there, and we're going to discover a couple of them as we move along with the video. If you're super curious, the way you list all the aliases is just by typing alias, and you can also grep for just git. And if you have FZF installed, which is an awesome tool, and I have a cool video about it, FZF is a fuzzy finder. You can also run it through the fuzzy finder and then find some commands. In fact, I'm going to show this to you. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to run my other distribution, which is the dev insider distribution. This is the one that I typically use when I record my videos. So if I do this in there, right? So if I do alias and then grep git, right? And then I also pipe it into FZF. Then I can do something like log, and then I'm going to see maybe even like this, and I'm going to see all the kinds, all kinds of git aliases for git log. And as you can see, there's a bunch of them, and we have only seen like these two, and these like honestly, these two are also like almost the only ones that that I use all the time. All right, so let me go out of here. We're not going to need this distribution anymore. Now, as I already mentioned, all the commands, all of a sudden they run through the pager. For example, when we ran git branch before, it just displayed them. But if we run it now, it runs through the page, and it's usually there's never a need for this. Okay, git log, the pager, git show main, for example, right? Also through the pager. Like everything runs through the pager, right? Why? Because there's this variable pager. Okay, and now it's last. Before it wasn't there. Okay, now we can also disable it just by doing this config global core pager, and we're going to set it to this. Okay, and if we're going to show it git config, okay, then we're going to see that the pager is now nothing. Did I type in page? I wanted pager. Hold on, pager. Hold on. Okay, so let me do pager, and also let me do global unset core page like this. Okay, so let's see what I did. There we go. Okay, pager. Great. So now this means that if we run git branch, it's not going to run through the pager, right? If we do, git log a, it's not going to run through the pager. If we do, git show main, it's not going to run through the pager. Okay. Now, for my taste, this is a bit too much. So let's actually go and unset pager as well. And what we can do is we can go and do global, okay, and then we can do pager.log, and we can say, okay, for the log, let's do false. Now, usually I wouldn't do this, but in this particular video, all the logs are going to be very, very short. So now if we do git branch, it still runs through the pager, but if we do git log a, it oh yeah, so this is what I wanted. Yeah, so the logs, they don't run through the pager, and the git branch actually still runs through the page. Okay, now this is how I usually would have it, but for this particular video, we're also going to do the same thing for the branches. Okay, so we're going to do pager branch, and we're going to do false, and so now git branch also doesn't run through the page, and this is how it looks like in the config. Okay, there we go. Pager log false, branch false. Okay, I believe that you got the syntax by now. Since we're using ZSH, I can use a fancy command called take. So I'm going to do take : / merge playground. Okay, so this is going to be a directory that we're gonna play with. Was the merge conflict. Okay, so take it changes the directory and also creates a directory at the same time, right? So if this directory doesn't exist, it creates it. If it does, it just changes it into it. Okay, so we're going up and then we're going back down. All right, so this is an entirely empty directory, and we're going to do ginit, right? So it's the same as git init. We're initializing an empty repository, and what I will also do is I will actually open Visual Studio Code because for this video I don't want to edit files in on the terminal because I want it to be as practical, as close to practice as possible. Okay, so I'm always going to do this like this. Okay, so as you can see, this is an entirely empty directory. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a README. Okay, so we're going to do readme.md. Okay, so we're creating a merge conflict. Okay, so we're going to say that this is going to be the base version, and it's right before the branches diverged. Okay, diverged like this. Okay, and I have a setting in VS Code that if I save the file, that it will add an empty line. So notice that a 2 will appear as soon as I save the file. I'm actually going to revert this. I'm going to try to remember, I'm going to try not to forget to save without formatting. I'm going to press Control K, Control Shift S. Okay, because I don't want this new line, because I want the diffs to look as as clean as possible. Okay, so if we do GST to show git status, then we see this, and if we do GAA to add all the changes, and we do GST again, we see that everything was added. And now we can do git commit message, and I'm going to say that this is going to be a commit summary, and this is the base. Okay, so this is where we are starting. Okay, glog a shows us okay there's only one commit. Okay. Now, we're going to create another branch, and we're going to switch to it automatically, and we're going to use one of our fancy new aliases, which is going to be GCB, right? Git create branch, and we're going to call it topic, right? So this is where we are. Okay. So now we're going to go and we're going to say that this is our. Well, I can actually remove this. Okay. So we're going to say this is our topic version. It's when we diverged from main on purpose. Dot. I'm not sure if we had dot before. In any case. Okay, so let's save. As you can see, there's a change, there's a modified stuff. Okay, but we don't care about this right now. Okay, great. So let's just add everything and just commit message. Okay, I'm going to say commit summary, and we're going to say that this is our topic. Okay, let's do glog a, and as we can see, we have the main, we have the topic. Okay, great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to main, and we're going to create a situation in which we're going to pretend like some other developer already committed something and somehow they already merged it into main. Okay, so while we were working on our thing, some other thing already landed in main. Okay, so first we need to go back to main, and there's an alias git GCM to go back to main. Okay, git checkout main. Okay, so we're going to go over here and we're going to say, okay, so this is the we're going to call it other dev version. Okay, we're going to say the other dev finished first. Okay, his changes or her are already merged into main like this. Okay, save without formatting. Great. Okay, so somehow he managed to do this. Commit summary other dev topic. Okay, so if we do glog a now, we see that we're branching off. This is where changes diverged. This was our topic. We did our change, but in the meantime, somebody else did the thing, created a PR. The whole thing was merged into main. And so now, if we were to try to merge these two commits, as a reminder, we're never merging branches in Git. We're actually just merging commits. So if we're going to merge them, there is clearly going to be a conflict. And by the way, this is going to be a common theme for this video, but some parts of Visual Studio Code's UI update automatically. They just look at your file system and they observe it, and when there's a change they refresh, but not all of them. So as you can see, like part of the UI didn't refresh, but as soon as I click there, it's going to be fine. This is how it should look like right now. All right, so we constructed a perfect example for a conflict, but before we actually attempt the merge, let's actually talk about merges and merge resolution mechanisms. There are always two steps. The first one is you allow your version control system, which is Git in our case, to attempt to resolve all the merge conflicts automatically for you. Now, the second step is essentially when it fails and it says, hey, there are conflicts, and then essentially, 99% of the time, this means that you have to resolve them manually, which means manually specifying which version to pick. Surely you will use some tool to help you, but at the end of the day, you're the one who decides which version is the most up-to-date one. Now, some of these tools are so good that they can even resolve those conflicts automatically for you. I know a lot of people personally who swear that, for example, IntelliJ's merge resolution mechanisms are so good that it feels like magic. Essentially, my point is that there is no standard algorithm for resolving merge conflicts, neither in the first step nor in the second one. Now, many version control systems, they behave very differently when they're running through this first merge resolution step, right? And specifically, Git is not going to try very hard to actually resolve the conflicts automatically for you. It will try really hard to recognize the ones that are unambiguous, and it will fix those. But that's it. Then it's going to give up. That said, Git is sometimes smart enough to figure out that your line moved around, but you didn't change it. And so it figures that out, and it doesn't present you the conflict. But usually, like most of the times, if you change like exactly the same line, then it's a it's pretty sure that you're gonna get a conflict. And so we're gonna go and see this in action. Oh, and by the way, what it's not uncommon to abort the merge. And if you want this abortion to go smoothly, before you attempt the merge, make sure that your working copy is clean, so there are no changes. Okay, so we're gonna do GST one last time to see that there's nothing to commit. Commit the working tree is clean, right? Which is the working copy. So there are no changes laying around. So if something goes wrong, you can always abort successfully. What we need to do is basically we need to say git merge, right? And then we're gonna give it what branches to merge. We can actually give it multiple, but in our case we just need one, right? So we're gonna do git merge topic, which means take the topic branch and bring it into the main. Okay, so you're always on some branch, and then you say bring the other one in. Okay, before I run this, I'm also going to show you the GM alias, which is just git merge. Okay, so this is the first time when we're going to go and do GM topic like this, right? As you can see, like part of the UI refreshes, so I'm going to click over here, see like this one only refreshed over here, right? So we see over here a C, which is a conflict over there, both modified, and we're going to ignore the VS Code side for now. We're going to concentrate over here, okay? So as you can see, try to automatically merge everything, right? So in this particular case, it was only, we only have one file, okay? So that says conflict, merge conflict, and readme MD, automatic merge failed, fix conflicts, and then commit the result. Okay, right? So we're forced to create this merge commit at the very end. Okay, and our prompt already helps us out. It says, hey, there's some stuff laying around. Okay, so very important that you understand that Git is, like these CLI tools, they feel like they're stateless tools, right? You just say, do this and then it just does, right? And then do this and then it just does. Now in Git, like some things, they put Git into a different state, right? So Git is actually stateful, right? So now we're in this merge state, and I actually believe that if we go into the Git directory, we're going to see that there will be I don't remember. Yeah, as you can see, there is a bunch of like merge heads and merge modes and stuff. Okay, so merge head is, for example, just a pointer to right. So it creates like sort of like a commit to track all of this stuff. Okay, so it's like in this different state. And so if we run git status, right, which is GST, the output is going to look slightly different, right? So it says, you have unmerged paths, so it understands that we're in the middle of a merge. It shows us, we can abort the merge. In fact, let's actually abort the merge, right? So GMA, which is the alias to abort the merge, right? So it's exactly this. So if you can do GMA, all of this will go away. I mean, part of the UI is going to refresh, part not. Okay, so we're exactly where we started. Okay, so let's actually go and do this again. GM topic. We're gonna do this over and over again today. Okay, we're gonna play sort of this sort of the same conflict over and over again, and just so that you sort of understand like what's happening behind the scenes. Is that behind the scenes, it's about to create this merge commit, right? And essentially, when you resolve the conflicts, you add them to the staging area the same as you would normally would, and you would commit as you normally would, and that's it, right? So there's actually no magic behind it. Now I need you to understand that the Git CLI offers you thousands of tools. You're perfectly capable to do everything on the CLI, but let's be honest, in practice you're going to use some tools. So we're going to do both. I'm going to show you some things on the CLI, but most of the times you're going to focus on your visual tool. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to show you is an alias called GD, which is just git diff. Okay, so if we run GD, then we're going to see a diff between these two branches, and what we see over here is called the so-called combined diff. In fact, maybe if we do this, it's going to look a bit prettier. Let's actually get out and let's do it again. In fact, I believe that this is some rendering issue of my terminal, because it shouldn't look like this. Like these two lines, they should be inside. It's kind of weird. Why does it do that? Maybe let's also do what did we do? Gconfig global pager. Let's also do diff. like this. Okay, let's do GD. That's weird, huh? Because what it should look like this over here, right? So like this line should not be completely green and so on. It's weird. Okay, in any case, oh yeah, by the way, I kind of have a hunch why this happened is because there's a new Git version. I updated just before recording this video. Maybe that was not a good idea, and maybe there's a bug. In any case, just imagine that this line was actually over here and this line was actually over there. And I actually wanted to explain these two columns to you, right? So essentially, the first column shows the difference between the working copy and the branch that you're on, which is the head, and the second column displays the difference between the working copy and the branch that you're merging in, which is the topic. Okay, so essentially we're in this weird state where it went to your file and it added a bunch of this information. Okay, so it added a bunch of these like less than symbols, and it said, okay, so this was the head, and this is how it looks like, and this line should be over here. And then you have these two a bunch of equal sign, and I'm using Fiora code, so if you have a bunch of them, it just displays them like this. Then you have the branch that you're merging in, and this is its name. Okay, most of the time you're not going to use the CLI to actually see these changes and resolve the merge conflicts. So let's actually take a look over here, right? So essentially, at the end of the day, you have to remove all of these things, and you basically have to decide what is going to stay. Okay, and if you're using tools like Visual Studio Code, for example, over here, it actually brings a couple of buttons that do this for you, right? So you don't need to manually modify this file. And you can just say, okay, I wanna pick whatever here was, right, which is the incoming change. And so let me actually do this. And so you can click on accept the incoming change or accept both changes, or you can compare changes and so on. So I'm going to say accept incoming changes. Okay, so this is what it did, and I'm also going to remove this empty line. Okay, I'm gonna save the file. Okay, now it's very important to understand that even though just saving the file is not enough, right? So this thing is still laying around there as a conflict, right? So it's still marked as unresolved. So you need to mark it as a resolved, and the way you do it is simply by adding it, right? So you just do GAA the same as you did before, right? So as you can see now it's over there, and now you're gonna see it's modified. Also, VS Code has this the source control view. So if you go in there, you're gonna see exactly the same thing. Okay, you can also do minus to like remove it again, and then it's going to say that it's conflicted. No, no, because we already resolved it. Okay, it doesn't matter. So this minus and plus, they just remove it from the staging area and add it back to the staging area. We're going to talk more about the staging area in the upcoming videos. So if you do GST, it's going to look exactly the same as before. So essentially, you go through all of the files, you go through all of the conflicts inside of these files, you resolve all of them, you mark all of them as resolved by adding them to the staging area just by running, gadd, git add, either file by file or all of them, and then you actually have to create a commit. Okay, so let's actually go and do git commit message. I'm going to say merge commit like this. Okay, so if we do git log a, then we're going to see that now they were brought in together. Now these were the absolute basics of git merging. So for the rest of the video, and I'm probably going to split it into two because I know that it's going to be very long, we're going to learn about a bunch of cool tricks related to merging, and we're also going to play around with a bunch of visual tools and so on.